From each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are. From memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried. And with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight. Reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving Magic Podcast. I'm KJ.
And I'm Jeffrey. And we are back today with the 42nd Disney feature-length film. From June 26th, 1959. It is a film called Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Before we get too far, would you like to start us off with a synopsis about Darby O'Gill and the Little People?
Yes. A wily old codger matches wits with the king of the leprechauns and helps play matchmaker for his daughter and the strapping lad who has replaced him as caretaker.
Now, that's weird. So, wait, weird is not the right word for it. First off, half that's not even in English, whatever you just said. But
I know, sorry that I felt like I was saying that really slow, but it was kind of a mouthful.
The last movie we watched,
Yeah,
The Shaggy Dog, the synopsis didn't give away anything. This one gives like the whole story is right there. It's it went even down to like the okay.
Welcome to IMDb.
There is no spoilers left unspoiled after that synopsis.
Well, I don't know. If you have complaints, you should see IMDb, Jeff, not me.
I mean, no.
That's where I get my synopsis from.
So it's a live action film.
Yep.
And this actually features a young Sean Connery, who is a future James Bond. So that's something that Disney can say, that they have a future James Bond on one of their films.
Yep.
But do you have any other facts about the film? Go ahead.
So, Walt Disney started planning for this movie in the 1940s. After World War II, Disney sent several artists to Ireland for background material. So he started planning for it, and then I think it, like, from what I found, it took a while, because I think at one point he had promised people it was coming, but then it didn't actually get put into production for like maybe 10 or something years after that.
That's why it took so long,
yeah. Yeah, I guess. There was forced perspective used.
Okay.
And I had a hard time when we were watching it trying to figure out exactly how that was used.
Can you explain to our listeners what forced perspective is?
Yeah, so basically it's like a high-tech look in this movie for the leprechauns, and it looks complicated, but I guess it's actually not, because basically you're just putting things at certain angles to make them look as small or as big as you actually want them to.
So think of it like Disney World, where you're walking down Main Street and like the second stories of the houses are smaller to make the houses look like they're more than one story, and to make the castle look bigger. It's all forced perspective. So it's like the same thing where they're trying to make somebody look bigger than others.
So basically, how they achieved that in this movie was by placing the normal size actors closer to the camera than the tiny ones, which they used apparently by lining them up on the same horizontal planes through the lens so that the distance between them cannot be detected, which helped them achieve their forced perspective. Yeah. But I guess like when I was like watching for it, I was just like, I can't really tell how are these people on the same plane but different. So obviously they changed what they were looking for, because I couldn't tell. It made me so mad that I couldn't.
It worked.
Like knowing that it was being used.
It was like
Yeah,
famously, I mean, it's not Disney, I know, but it's like famously used in like the Lord of the Rings saga,
yeah,
where they're like trying to make Gandalf look really large and like they had to do forced perspective for all of that too. But
yeah.
yeah,
Um, and then the lighting used to make the actors were kept in forced proper perspective without seeming false used up most of the electricity, and it apparently blew out a substation in Burbank when the lights were turned on without warning. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
kind of like that scene in
The
the
Carousel
Carousel
of
of
Progress,
Progress where
yes.
he's like, that's the 10th circuit I've blown this week.
Oh, every time he has company over, he blows a fuse.
Well, that's progress.
Yeah, maybe that's where they got
That's
that as
progress.
their
No, probably not. I would assume it's
inspiration. I don't
probably
know.
it was going before that.
I
So yeah,
guess. Um, yeah. And then, like you said, Sean Connery's in here. Um, I guess this movie was actually what brought him to the attention of the guy that was gonna cast him. Like he sought him out after he saw this, which I
from
thought
James
was
Bond. So I mean, it worked.
yes.
The dude is the tallest, darkest, and handsomest.
I just I don't know, like seeing him in this role, I wouldn't have been like, "Hey, you're gonna be James Bond."
It
I
worked.
don't know, but I don't know. I thought that was a very interesting tidbit. And also, if you do watch it, it's dubbed. So, the original
I only
re
noticed it at the end. So go ahead and tell me.
yeah,
I didn't
well,
notice
I
it.
noticed it a lot, so I don't know how you did
I
it.
only noticed it at the end.
Because then after I read this, when I was researching it as we were watching it, I was like, well, that makes sense because I knew something was off with mouths. But in the original release, there were numerous asides where the Irish characters would speak in Munster Irish. And I'm not even going to try to speak what they were speaking in the notes that I took. But basically Darby speaks it, King Brian, which is like the king of the leprechauns, he will speak it later. Um like you're not gonna tell them the whole movie synopsis here. So anyway, um and then later on, the versions of had most of these lines redubbed in English. So it's not like the whole thing, but like there's definitely parts of it where like lips aren't quite matching up to what's being said. But the version shown on Disney Plus is a dubbed English version. So you're not quite getting the Munster Irish.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
noticed it at the end.
Yeah.
I even like asked you at the end.
Yeah, you're like, she's obviously not singing. I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's because we're watching a dubbed version.
But that character that I said that was the singing definitely speaks English because she's in later films. But whatever, we'll get there.
Yes, but I think like some of the dialect that they used in here, it must have
Yeah.
been like hard to understand. So they must have like I said, I wouldn't even be able to like Darby was counting off and it was like on do tree and then cheat hair. I guess it's for I don't know. I'm probably butchering that. But it's like I don't think many people would have gotten that he was counting off one, two, three, four.
Yeah.
Um so and I don't even know like ahead of us what that would even translate into.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, the version that we watched on Disney Plus is dubbed.
Well, if you've seen the original, deep dive in the magic pod at gmail.com.
Yeah, tell us how you feel about it. Or if you speak Irish, Munster Irish, go ahead and let us if you know how to say that and you want to record it and send it to us, we'll share it later.
You ready to dive in?
Sure.
All right, so we start off with the credits, and we see like an old-fashioned town during the credits, and like a lot of the films that we've been watching lately, there is um, like a thank you on the screen.
Hmm.
Um, I love this thank you. This is my favorite thank you that we've had so far. This is Walt Disney magic at its best.
Hmm.
The thank you that starts off this film is a thank you from Walt Disney himself, signed by Walt Disney, that says, "My thanks to King Brian of Nox Nashia and his leprechauns whose gracious cooperation made this film possible. This picture possible, I'm sorry. I love it. Signed by Walt Disney.
He actually wanted people to think that he used real leprechauns, and that's why he said that.
I love it. That just
Like,
earned so many points in my book for that. It's the best. But
Yeah.
Um,
I think he like ended up using King Brian, and I don't know if he used any of the other actors, but I think later on, like shortly thereafter, I think he wanted to act like he caught him and used him for something else,
you know that there's like a
which I think is
the
really weird.
the little man of Disneyland.
Oh
In
yeah.
Adventureland, Disneyland, like in the tree, there's like a leprechaun. Like in Adventureland, there's like in a
But is
tree.
it supposed to be a leprechaun?
It's a leprechaun. Look it up. The little man of
I thought it was like a fairy.
no.
Sure it's a leprechaun?
I will go ahead and talk while I fact check myself right here.
Well, anyway, um there are some Irish references in the movie. I wrote some of them down. Um Later on you're gonna hear him Darby talk of a puka, which
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, I was gonna
what
reference
is
that
a
after.
puka? But a puka is a spirit or ghost. A Costa is a silent coach, known as the death coach. Um, Faith is, I guess, and also an interjection meaning for damn. So I guess like they're damned. Um, Blatherskite is a person given to babbling, foolish, or nonsensical talk, which I'm pretty sure they all think that are because he's like a
Yeah, we'll get there
storyteller
for sure.
because they don't believe him or the little people. Um,
So,
okay,
The Little Man of Disneyland.
okay.
It was based on a 1955 Little Golden Book, which is the charming story of Patrick Bagora, who is a leprechaun who lives in a tiny half-hidden house in the roots of an orange Anaheim tree in Disneyland. And Adventureland. So he's a leprechaun. Not that Magic Kingdom though. So we saw out the film.
Isn't there a little door in Magic Kingdom or something though?
Yeah, by the bathrooms and by like Gaston's Tavern that I will never figure out what that means. I would love for you to email me and tell me what that is. I know so many hidden things and so many references.
Have you
Which,
ever looked it up?
which,
You've never looked
not
it up?
not to get ahead of ourselves, but there will be a references video coming out sometime soon. But I do not get it.
Okay.
But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, whatever. So that's by the bathrooms of Gaston's Tavern. I don't get it. So,
Okay.
into this film, speaking of Walt Disney Magic. So we start off, we see an older lady visiting a younger lady, asking her for a pinch of tea with like Irish accents. Um, she starts to give this younger lady some like dating advice. She says, "Many a lass who lost their market for waiting too long for a man." How does that make you feel?
I did not like this lady. I basically felt bad for her because I felt like the old lady just basically comes in there and nicely tries to say, "Hey, your biological clock's saying
Yeah.
you're gonna wait around. It's gonna be too long. You need a husband."
Yeah, this poor like young actress, I think she's got like a handful of Disney films coming up where she's just getting older people telling her how to live with a man. Um, but so this older lady,
At least the last one didn't tell her. The next one
well,
doesn't tell her
that's not
about
good.
her biological
It's
clock
yeah,
ticking.
it's true. That's awful. Um, but this lady, she loves her son. Um, she she's just trying to talk her son up to the younger lady. She says that her son is as proud as a whitewashed pig. Um, Again, it'll become a reoccurring theme of this film, how much this lady is the biggest fan of her son. But at the same time, the younger lady, whose name is Katie, she's a main character. Her name is Katie. Um, she realizes that Lord Fitzpatrick is coming. Like he shows up to their house, and he is obviously a lord, but he's also like he owns the house that they live in. Like
Like the whole land and everything.
Katie and her father take care of the gardens and the land around on the Lord Fitzpatrick's estate,
Yeah.
which we'll learn later, but that makes more sense. Um, so Katie runs to fetch her father, who's not there, and so that leaves this older lady to again talk up her son to Lord Fitzpatrick about how great he is and how great he would be at taking care of the lands. Like this lady loves her son. Everybody loves their kids, but this lady, you'll learn. Um, Someone said that the sun doesn't set on her son, but she but so then Katie goes to meet her father, but then we then meet Darby O'Gill, who is drinking and playing cards and telling stories about leprechauns at the pub. Like right away, we learn that he's a storyteller, like you mentioned earlier. Um, so he is drinking and telling stories to anybody who can listen, and the people at the pub are all laughing at his stories. There's even a priest there who's listening, and where are we? So Darby starts telling the story about a leprechaun, and the screen then changes to like show his story, like a dream sequence kind of thing, where his story is coming to life, and Darby is talking to King Brian, the king of the leprechauns, and he's looking for wishes, and King Brian's going to give him a few wishes. So then Darby says, "What's gold to a man who is too sick or too sad to enjoy it?" So his three wishes are he wishes for health, a crop of potatoes, and a crock of gold. How do you feel about those three wishes?
I mean,
Can't eat potatoes if you're not healthy. You can't afford potatoes without a crock of gold, so
you could grow them.
it's true.
And I feel like in Ireland, I mean, the stereotypical crop is your potatoes. I mean, why are you going to wish for the one thing? I don't know. Maybe he's worried about famine again. I don't know.
Okay, so then
It's an interesting
this
set of wishes,
yeah,
I guess.
this giant pot of golden coins appears. So then Darby tries to squeeze in a fourth wish of crocks of gold for all of his friends. But then, since he wished for a fourth one, he loses all of them. So that's like a leprechaun trick that if they can get you to wish for a fourth wish, you lose all of your wishes. You ever heard of that before?
I had not.
Yeah, me neither. So, and then the screen then cuts to back to real time with Darby telling the stories, and he's still talking about the leprechaun, and he's talking about how the leprechaun he has 5,000 years of tricks. Like he's 5,000 years old and he's full of tricks.
Hmm.
So it's a great way to like introduce the characters of the film
Yeah.
and show that he's a trickster and that he tricked him into doing a fourth wish, so he lost his stuff. And everyone thinks that he's just a storyteller. So then the priest is telling the bar about about how the church acquired this awesome new bell and that they need someone to go help and get it. So this one gentleman at the bar, actually I think it's the old lady's great son that she loves so much, um, says that he'll do it for £3. And in case you're wondering, £3 in 1959 equals 87 pounds today. But Darby offers to get the bell just for the priest's blessing. So the priest takes him up on it. But at the same exact time, Katie comes running into the bar to get her father because the Lord is visiting the house. And then we learn that Katie's father is Darby. So there we go. So she says that Lord Fitzpatrick is there and that they have to go. So the Lord, like I said, Lord Fitzpatrick is waiting for Darby with a gentleman named Michael from Dublin, who is actually Sean Connery. And this is where we learn that Michael will be taking over the gatehouse because Darby can't take care of it anymore. He says that that Darby can retire for half pay, and that this young strapping lad named Michael is going to be the new caretaker.
Yeah.
And that Darby and Katie have 2 weeks to move out of the Lord's estate. So we have 2 weeks. But Darby doesn't want Katie to know that they're being replaced yet. So he just tells Katie that Michael will be staying with them for a while because, again, he doesn't want to blow his cover.
Yeah.
Because there's a reoccurring theme a lot in this film that he's a storyteller, but he doesn't want to hurt Katie. Like Katie
And
is.
this is a whole nother example of why you should just tell the truth.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there. So he tells Katie that Michael's going to be staying with them. Um, but at the same time, um, again, as Lord Fitzpatrick is leaving, the old lady wants to talk about how great her son is because he's the best. But then she then runs. The old lady goes to the pub to grab her son, who's she loves, but he's very drunk. So now we're in the house. We're in the Lord Fitzpatrick's place that Darby and Katie live in with now Michael. And Darby's playing the guest and his daughter a song that he learned in the old ruins of Ireland on the violin, which will come back later. But then because he's a storyteller, he starts to tell Michael about King Brian the leprechaun. So back to his storytelling ways.
Yep.
But then he also realizes that he has to go and get this bell that he told the priest that he was going to get. So he ends up that he's going to go and gather up a horse to make his mission easier for him in the morning. So it's nighttime. He's going to go find a horse. So the horse that he's going to go that he goes to get ends up running up a hill, and Darby chases it up to the top, where the horse is standing next to like a well, and the well keeps like lighting up different colors, like the fairies from Sleeping Beauty are trying to change the dresses colors, and it's just like the well just keeps lighting up. But then the horse suddenly starts to turn colors, and
because it's a puka.
It's a puka, like you mentioned earlier.
I was so confused.
So it's like a demon,
the spirit
horse, and the horse knocks Darby down the well. And then once he falls down the well, we see two smaller people talking about how they finally are able to meet Darby, and they're going to take him to the king. So, we then see Brian the leprechaun, who's playing bagpipes as Darby enters the royal room with a bunch of smaller people,
a lot of forced perspective going on and blowing my mind.
So this then proves that Darby's stories are actually true because he fell down the well and now he's with King Brian.
But did he fall down the well or fall somewhere outside the well and hit his head and he's imagined this whole story?
Get there.
Could that be it?
We'll get there. So
bet everybody thinks so.
So they discuss how great it is to see each other, and Darby, who's very happy to be there, is like mesmerized by all the gold and the jewels. Yeah. Brian tells Darby that since he is there, he's no longer allowed to leave, but Darby is quite stressed that he has to get back to Katie, and but Darby's upset because Brian is upset because he's trying to reward Darby for keeping the story of the leprechauns alive through all of his stories, and he's rewarding them by like bringing him here to get him out of the stresses of losing his job and losing the place to live. So Brian is like upset. King Brian is upset that Darby wants to leave, but he tells him he can't leave. So they start to catch up and stuff, and then the leprechauns end up giving Darby a violin from the Emperor of the Fairies. And you might be able to make sense of this. I was confused, so I'll compare notes here in a second. But Darby starts to play a song, and everybody starts to dance. Everybody's dancing this jig. The faster he plays, the faster they dance. But somehow his playing convinces all of the people to leave. They just randomly get on horsebacks and they just, including King Brian, they just are mesmerized by this song and they just leave. Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was playing some kind of specific song. I don't know. But so he's playing this song and they're all like mesmerized and they all are chasing after something. So Brian opens a hole in the wall and all the people run off. So then Darby uses this as a chance. He grabs pockets and pockets and pockets full of all these jewels, but then he loses them all as he's running to escape. They all fall out of his pockets while he's running to escape. Um, so Darby's hiding out, trying not as a cock, or as he's trying to get back. And but King Brian then he does find Darby's hideout and he scolds him for making a laughing stock out of him. So then Darby does what he does best and he challenges King Brian to a drinking game. And they sing songs, they try to rhyme everything that they say is very Dr. Seuss. They're rhyming everything together. Um,
So Jeffrey would have done really good at this game.
that's right. So they're rhyming, but this causes King Brian to get drunk, and then before the leprechaun realizes the sun is coming up, which means that King Brian no longer has magic during the sunlight. So he's been duped by Darby.
Mhm.
So then Darby threatens to have a cat eat the drunk king.
Mhm.
Speaking of cats, our cat was just hanging out with us up here. So a
Yeah.
cat eat the drunk king. So then Brian, to save himself, offers 3 wishes to spare him. And he tries to trick him into a 4th wish, but he won't fall for it again. Like he's not falling for a 4th wish again. He's been there, he's done that.
Yeah.
So
He also doesn't make all his wishes at one time.
that's what I was just gonna say. So Darby uses his 1st wish to wish that Brian stays with him at his beck and call until he decides what his other wishes are going to be. And Brian gives him a fortnight, um, and then he gets like locked in a sack, basically. So he's always gonna be with him. So he has 2 wishes left, but he doesn't know what he wants to wish yet. Um, and then we see that he is then back in his own town because he then like runs outside to like get water to splash on his face. Like he's one of the 7 dwarfs from Snow White. So he went there and he like has a trough and he gets a bunch of water on his face. But then he sees the old lady, the sun-loving lady, who he's very confused because he knows that he can't trust her, but now he's realizing that he's back in his own like land. But the old lady is trying to talk to Katie about how wonderful her son is because she loves him. Um, but we also see Michael and Katie talking about being lonely, and we learn that there's a dance tonight because of course there is. There's a dance tonight, and but then Darby comes like stumbling into the house, and Katie tells Darby that he needs to go to bed, but he says he can't because he needs to go get the bell that he promised the priest that he was going to get. And he convinced Michael to take over his duties for the day, cleaning up on the lands.
Mhm.
And he then tells Katie that he's going to buy her the manor house. Like he's going to buy this house for her because he knows he has the wishes. And but she doesn't want it. She doesn't want the houses. She just wants what she already has and her family and everything. So then he tries to convince her to tell him what she does want so that he could use it as his wishes because clearly he wants to wish something for her,
Yeah.
but she doesn't want anything. Um, so then he goes out on his way and everybody's out doing their own thing. Michael's out in the fields and he starts to like sing, which draws Katie in, and she's watching him lovingly while she's bringing him his lunch. But then Darby then returns with the bell, like very just easily returns with the bell and the horse.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, the father, the priest, asks Darby what's in the sack, but he's like, because again, the leprechaun's in the sack, but he kind of like plays it off, and they all are like, all right, we're gonna go to the pub to celebrate.
Mhm.
So he gives the bell and he goes to the pub to celebrate. But all the people of the pub are very curious what's in the sack, and they're like, because the sack keeps moving, and but when he tells them that it's the king of the leprechauns, they all want to see.
Mhm.
But then Darby's like, "Here, I'll show you." When he buys like a drink, and he gives the drink to the sack, and the thing inside of the sack drinks the drink.
A little drink.
Yeah, yeah, like and then they keep the mug, like they keep the glass like separate to like in case people don't believe it down the road, even though they're all skeptical. But then Darby walks out. We see Katie who's getting ready for the dance. She's like combing her hair. She's singing. She clearly has a crush. Um, but and then as Darby gets home, Katie's leaving for the dance. But at the same time, Michael, who's doing his duties, preparing to be James Bond, thinks that Darby is a poacher, so he tackles him before realizing who it is. And Michael wants to know what's in the sack, but he thinks it's a rabbit. He thinks that Darby is stealing rabbits from the the land because that's what he was thinking, that people were poaching rabbits.
And he did warn him to watch out for poachers, so
Yeah, so he was doing his own job.
he
So
technically got himself in trouble.
so Michael thinks that again that Darby has got a rabbit in the sack. So Darby decides, you know what? I'm just going to show Michael the king of the leprechauns, because he thinks I'm crazy. But when he opens the sack, what does he see?
A
A
rabbit.
rabbit, a very cute rabbit. Um, but then Brian, who only Darby can see, tricks Darby into wasting a wish, into wishing that Brian can see the leprechaun.
Mhm.
So he does wish that, but then Michael can still only see a rabbit because he can see him as a rabbit. So basically he conned himself
He
into
should have specified.
specified, but he didn't. So now there's only one wish
I
left.
want him to see you in your true form.
Um, so then at the dance, old lady's favorite son, whose name is Pony, by the way, he bullies his way into giving Katie a ride home.
Yeah.
And
And the other guy that was gonna like offer her a ride home seemed like a very nice
Yeah.
guy, and he just like,
so Pony, he
yeah.
bullies his way into giving Katie a ride home.
hmm
So, but at this time, Darby and King Brian they're arguing. Like he's upset, and he's like, if anything happens to Katie, Darby will drown Brian. But Brian says that if anything happens to Brian, he'll turn all his people on Darby, and that he doesn't want that either. So but Darby's like, he's stressed. He doesn't know what he wants to wish for Katie, and Brian is trying to convince him to wish anything because another wish will allow him to go back to his people.
Yeah.
And he just like they're just talking about how like they wish they could find a way for the people to like his daughter to fall in love and just just happiness. So then Brian visits Michael in his dreams to try to convince him to fall in love with Katie. So that way Darby, or I'm sorry, so that way Darby can wish him free. And then Brian also visits Katie in her dreams.
But it didn't really seem like he was in their dreams. It seemed like he was like walking
Yeah,
into their room,
yeah,
and
he
just
was
talking to them.
like because he had like
Kind of like how you do with me, and then you'll start talking, and I'll start talking back to you because I'm like, he does not even know he's asleep right now.
So, because earlier when Darby was trying to convince that Brian was in the sack, they like mentioned that he'll see him in his dreams later.
Yeah.
So he's like whispering in like their ears.
Mhm.
But after visiting Michael, he also visits Katie to talk about Michael would make a great husband, but when she opens his eyes, King Brian disappears. So then the next morning, Katie and Michael are walking around the fields, talking about the old ruins of Ireland. They playfully chase each other through the fields. But then Katie runs into a catching arms of old lady's favorite son, Pony, and Pony and Michael almost get into a fist fight.
I think she should have let them fight.
Yeah, so they almost get into a fist fight, but then Katie stops it. So then Michael and Katie begin to like playfully argue, and she tries to kiss him, but he walks away. But then she just runs up to him, and then they kiss.
Yeah.
So she got to kiss James Bond.
Yeah.
For all the Bonds girls,
So
she
from
got to kiss James Bond.
what I gathered from my research was this lady was trying to push her son upon Katie because
She wanted him to be the
the new caretaker.
yeah. She
Um,
loved her son.
and he was not fond of this other guy,
No.
Michael, at all. So that did not help.
So Darby,
But does he really like Katie?
I don't know.
Like
find out.
Pony?
We'll find out.
Or does he just want to be with her so he can be the caretaker?
I think he just wants to make his loving mom happy.
She is not loving.
So at this time though, Darby, there's so many names in this. Darby is excited because he sees like his daughter's happiness. So he's about to make his final wish, which makes Brian excited.
Mhm.
But at the exact same time, what happens? The church bell starts to ring, which completely catches Darby's excitement because he got that church bell. It means that church bell was ringing just for him. So that stopped his
But is
wish.
it really?
Hey,
Probably not.
it was beautiful. So then Darby decides, you know what? I'm gonna make my third wish in the pub. I'm gonna show everybody this. I'm gonna go to the pub. So, but as Darby is on his way to the pub, the old lady and her son Pony see this letter because somebody works at the post office or something. So like they see this letter um about how Michael is being the new caretaker.
Yeah, but I thought it was two old ladies. I didn't think Pony was there.
Oh yeah, well then she went to tell him. So like the old
Yeah, I think
lady,
she.
yeah.
I think so. Yeah, like you
Go ahead.
said, she was. I think she was. It was two ladies. It was her and then some other lady that we hadn't seen yet. I
Yeah.
don't think. And then they discover it, and then she must have went and told her son. But I don't remember Pony being there
Yeah.
when she first found out.
So but there's this letter about how Michael is the new caretaker, um, and kind of like realizes what's going on. So
Hmm.
then her and her favorite son think of a plan to run everybody out of town, run Michael out of town, run everybody out of town,
Yeah.
so that they can get what they want. So then we cut to the next scene, which is a very upset Katie, who clearly knows now because they part of their plan was to tell her with the letter.
Hmm.
And she's packing the house um, because she now knows that her father has lost the job, lost the house, and she's mad at Michael for not telling her that he's taking her father's job. Um, so then,
Should have just told the truth.
but then Michael then says that he wants them to stay there and he wants Katie to be his wife because he loves her, but she storms out because there's just they have like 1 day left to pack. They are out of time.
Hey, to bag.
Um, But then it cuts to the pub, and everybody's excited at the pub because Darby's going to make his wish, and they're like, "Oh, maybe there is an actual leprechaun here." Um, so that everyone starts talking about what they would wish for, but Darby's like, "No, you can't wish for that because if you wish for that, you have to wish for this." And like there's just like leprechauns are going to trick you into wishing for something that like if you wish for a giant house, who's going to clean it?
So
If
I
you wish
guess
for
you technically couldn't wish for infinite wishes because when you made the fourth wish, you would be
yep,
tricked
back
out of
to
your
the bubble.
wish. So you really only get 3 wishes.
And like this one person was wishing for a giant house, but he's like, "Who's going to clean it? How are you going to afford it?"
Do you
Stuff like
think
that.
that's why it's like that with genies? Like you only get
Yeah.
3 wishes with genies?
We'll get there.
So do you think a leprechaun and the genie are like in the same family tree?
We'll get there. I don't know. Well, the little guy at Disneyland is in the tree. Okay, so
Yes.
Katie comes running into the pub saying that they have to move, like she's telling her father, they have to move, and she throws the sack, um, and what do people in the pub see run out of the sack? But that's the rabbit, which again causes Darby to become the laughing stock of everybody again. He almost had him, but then she was upset. She throws the sack, and the rabbit runs out. So again,
Did you forget though that
he's
this
been the storyteller the whole time.
no, that the little leprechaun drank the little did they think
The rabbit
that
drank
a
it, correct?
rabbit
Yeah,
drank it and then threw it back?
yeah. So
I want to
again,
see it right now like that.
Darby is the laughing stock. Um, but at the same time, um, they're all kind of going their own way. They're all stressed. Um, the horses run away, and Katie is going to find the horse because they have to find the horse before they move, which is the next
She's
day.
gonna go find the puka.
Well, we're not. Yes, exactly. So she's going to, yeah, and then at the same time, um, Michael is also stressed and upset because he loves this girl and she's upset with him and he's stealing her father's job and there's just a lot going on and there's a dog driving a convertible chasing a cop who's chasing one.
Wrong movie,
That was
Jack.
last
Wrong
movie.
movie.
So there's a lot going on and
There are no cars in
yeah, I know
this
it's true.
film.
So Michael runs into Pony who knocks him out and covers him in alcohol so they can blame him on being drunk and they like throw him against like a building.
Won't me.
Um
Oh,
But then Darby returns to the house to see that the whole house is packed. And Katie is missing, and he reads the letter that blows the cover, and he takes off running to find Katie, but then he also sees like a knocked out and quote unquote drunk Michael. Michael tells Darby that she is chasing a horse, and Darby is afraid that the horse is the puka,
The puka.
the changing horse from earlier. And at the same time, they hear a banshee, which is the same noises that Darby heard when Katie's mother was taken away. So they fear that something had happened to Katie. So him and Michael begin to chase her into the night. They begin to run up a hill, and would you believe it? The stress-filled Disney storm returns. So the storm is
Yes.
happening.
Time out.
Okay.
So there is an Irish legend about the banshee,
Mhm.
and it said that she is often seen combing her hair as she approaches, which I thought that's super weird.
Katie was combing her hair earlier.
Um, she's not the banshee, Jeff.
Sequel.
Um, so anyway, how the way they filmed it, it's so dark,
Yeah.
but if you really pay attention to her when she's approaching them, you can see her combing her long hair.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I wish it was said something.
Oh,
But
sorry. Well, we can go back and watch
yeah.
it. It's on Disney Plus. But yeah, so she's combing her hair as she's approaching.
So they're running up the hill. There's a storm coming. Check it off the list for a Disney storm. They're yelling for Katie, but there's no luck. Um, but then they're on top of the same hill, like the same ruins that Darby fell down the well earlier. But then they look and they see that Katie has not fallen down the well. She's fallen down the hill, and she does not look well at all. It does not look good for her at all. At
Do you
this,
think the banshee already attacked her?
well, the Major can only take her away after something's happened to her.
I know, but do you think she's the one that attacked her and
I
knocked
mean,
her off the thing?
I don't know. It was also like raining, so you don't know.
You think it was the puka?
Maybe it was like
I wish we could have seen this.
like in Snow White, where like
The puka.
no,
It was the puka.
they like knocked the thing down and it falls like
A
on
fun
the
word.
yeah. All right. So they then see that the Banshee is coming for Katie, so we all know how bad the fall actually was. There's some high tech special effects for the 1950s I wrote for this Banshee. They make it look as high tech as they can.
Yeah.
But it looks good because again it's dark out, so it's like
Yeah, it's dark. But if you do look very closely, you can see her combing her
yeah.
hair.
See, I
It's
didn't.
very weird.
That's cool. I didn't notice that, but
Sorry. I should have pointed it out.
Darby tries to ward off the Banshee by throwing the lantern at it, but there's no such luck. And then Michael begins to carry a lifeless Katie down the hill, and then it cuts to like her at the bedside with the like there's like a priest like praying over her. We learn that she's got like a high fever, like she's not doing well at all. Um, and there's
So
a
it looks like
priest,
she's about to get her last rites.
which then the Banshee will get what the Banshee's there for. Um, but then after they're all stressed, things aren't looking good. We hear the Banshee again, which again, there's more 50 special effects. And at this time, the Banshee has the carriage, the death carriage. I forgot what you said it was called earlier.
It is called the Costa Bauer. It's a silent coach, a death coach.
Yeah. So the death coach
And once it's sent to Earth,
can't return.
It said to Earth what cannot return empty.
Yep, it cannot return empty-handed, which I will get to on that. So,
Yep.
The Banshee carriage is coming for Katie, the death coach, and Darby. Darby starts to scream for Brian. He's looking for his king friend. But then Brian does show up, but then Brian tells Darby that the death carriage cannot return empty-handed.
Mm-hmm.
So then Darby uses his final wish to take Katie's spot, and King Brian sadly agrees and grants his final wish.
Although he does kind of try to talk him
Yeah.
out of it because he's like, you don't know what you're asking for.
But he does. He does get to use his final wish for his daughter, and he wishes to take her space.
Yeah.
And then, in a very sad scene, Darby is told by a headless coachman to get in the carriage. It's pouring out, and the carriage starts to take off into the sky in a very stressful and sad scene. There.
I never thought I would see another Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
In a Disney film that was not like a Halloween film.
So, It's very sad. It's very emotional. Like you see, like Darby like accepting his fate,
Hmm.
but then as the coach is going through the sky, um, King Brian shows back up like in the carriage with them, and he shows up and he's like talking about how he was on his way home, but he decided to come see his friend Darby one last time instead. And Darby says that he's glad to see him, and to talk about all like the great times and all the great fights they had. To talk about like all of his
Yeah.
stories are coming true and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then in another sad but heartwarming part, Brian promises that Katie is now healthy again. So Darby got his wish. And then Brian says that he's going to keep an eye on Michael. He's going to keep an eye on Katie. And in the end, we all have to go. So things are kind of winding down. But then Brian says something. He looks at Darby and he goes, "You know, I really wish that I could go with you." And which causes Darby to say that he wishes he could come too.
Hmm.
Which then King Brian starts laughing because Darby then just made his fourth wish, meaning that all of the leprechauns' wishes are abandoned and Darby is returned to the land. Which I started laughing out loud when this happened because I called it a mile away. Like when this whole thing was happening, I was like, "This is gonna happen."
But there's a loophole here.
He looked for his final. He wished
No,
fourth wish.
he did wish for his fourth wish, but you're supposed to lose all your wishes when you wish that fourth wish. He wished to take Katie's place.
Yeah, but she was already healthy at that point.
Exactly. So that should have made her unhealthy again when she got back there, and it didn't.
Nope.
No,
So
that's how it
no,
works.
because here's
They
what.
messed the story
Nope,
up.
nope, nope, nope. Here's why. Here's why. Because the banshee was only coming there because she had gotten so sick.
Hmm.
So he took the place in the death coach, which allowed her time to get better.
Hmm.
So whatever. So I called that a mile away,
Yeah.
and so then it cuts to Darby is back in the land here.
He just gets dumped into a puddle, a
Yeah,
muddy
yep,
puddle.
he falls in the puddle. But then where does he go? Of course, he goes to the pub, and he starts telling the people in the pub that now he is the only man alive to ride in the death coach, and they all just laugh at his stories again, as he's just a storyteller. Um,
Could you imagine?
so then Michael comes into the pub talking about how he talks about how he's believing and he's how he's going to believe with these little people. He then gets into a fight with Mama's favorite son Pony, and he wins because he's James Bond. Um,
God didn't know what was coming.
Mother comes in to console her favorite son, and then Darby, Michael, and Katie they all ride together, singing together and it's a happily ever after.
Yeah.
And that's the end. So I enjoyed it,
Hmm.
but I thought I was going to enjoy it so much more. So like what they say, like don't judge a book by its cover, right? Like that's what they always say. So
Yeah.
as you see when if you watch these videos or like follow us on Instagram, I like post like the pictures with like the date of the film and everything. And like I have been judging this movie for the last X amount of months from that picture I made. And I was like, I'm gonna love this film, which has only happened one other time with that So Dear to My Heart movie. And both times I was like, I enjoyed it way less than I thought I was going to enjoy it.
Okay, so I assumed that you thought you were going to really enjoy that one because it was Walt Disney's favorite
Yes,
movie.
well, yes, that it was
I
Walt Disney's favorite
I
movie.
thought that's why you had such high expectations for it. I didn't know you were like basing it off
Well,
of the
this one
picture
I
that you
was
have found for the movie.
100% basing it off of the picture that I found.
Okay, well,
Um,
I actually liked it better than I thought I was going to,
well, then we're even. So,
but I didn't like it as much as
um,
you would think,
but
probably.
before I talk about that, tell me about your thoughts. I want to hear your rating, and then let's dive into the list.
So, IMDb rated a 7.1 out of
That's a
10.
pretty decent rating, yeah.
I gave it a 7. I probably could have gave it a 6, but I gave it a 7. It wasn't terrible. Um, there was parts of it that I liked. There was parts of it that I thought was like very dry and slow, but definitely had like a good little story to it. I guess it's a good little St. Patrick's Day movie if you want to watch a St. Patrick's Day movie.
It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it is on Disney Plus. It is dubbed. I wish they had it where you could watch the non-dubbed version
I'm sure we can
too,
find it.
just so you could kind of like compare. Um, but yeah, I mean, poor little Darby. They probably think he's just like the town drunk
Yeah.
that like makes up all these
So-
stories.
So before you do your list, because that's what I was going to say about this, about like him telling stories. So, my favorite movie of all time. It's not Disney.
Mm.
It's
You
not.
cannot talk about it.
Well, hold on. It's my favorite movie of all time. I adore it. I think it's the best film ever made. Um, it it's like a lot of the film is. I'm not even gonna say the name of it because it's not necessarily children appropriate all the time, but it's it talks about like it's very much about how like proving a father's tales were actually true. And
Oh.
like that like they touch on that a lot in this film that like everyone thinks that he's just a storyteller, but really there's warrant to his things. But
Yeah.
not to derail this because this is a Disney podcast, but how about your list? Did this fun tale make it onto your list upon a star?
This fun tale did not make it on my list.
So what is your list?
So my list is not changing. So we're gonna go with Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, The Shaggy Dog, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Fantasia, Saludos Amigos, and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Yeah, so mine's not changing either. Again, there was parts I liked about it, the fantastic nature of it. There's the guy got his pony or whatever got his comeuppance, and it's just like there's a lot I liked about this, but mine's not changing either. My list upon a star is Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, Cinderella, and lastly The Shaggy Dog. Thanks for taking this journey with us today. Thanks for taking this journey with us always. Thanks for telling your friends. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Instagram. Of course, we have the email at deepdiveinthemagicpod at Gmail. If you've seen this undubbed version or if you want to find it now and you can tell us where to find it. If you knew about the hair combing thing that I didn't know about, shoot us an email.
If you know other little like fun Irish sayings that don't make sense to us that
Yeah.
don't speak Irish, like hookah.
So I mentioned earlier in this that there might be some bonus features with some references coming out, but keep your ear to the street on that. We got some fun things in the works, but thank you as always. That's number one. Thanks for putting up with our cat trying to eat leprechauns hanging out with us today and interrupting nothing.
To reanimate this
Yeah.
pup. He's like, look, guys, I'm right here.
Yeah, that's right.
That's little Winston.
Yeah. So
And my little mom. See,
So-
he was just trying to show you.
well-
Because he kept pushing it this way. So he's like, see, there I am.
So the next episode we will be diving into is actually the final film of the decade of the 1950s. We are about to move to a different section of the Pop Century Hotel. We are moving out of the 50s. So yeah, we've come a long way. The film is another film that I am sure that only a few of you have heard of, if any, because I had never heard of it. It is the 43rd Disney feature-length film, and it is called Third Man on the Mountain.
Yes.
So would you like to take us out?
Yeah. So stay with us next week and see what you think about climbing mountains.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for deep diving magic.
Bye.
Bye.